Greetings, YouTube friends. Today I'm here live with KM Garland of the Weekly Stars, and we are going to unpack this upcoming new moon. Today is Saturday, January 17th, 2025, and the new moon happens tomorrow on January 18th. Our outline for today is that we're going to first take a look at the astrological charts and think about it in the context of the financial markets and of world events. And then at the end, we're going to wrap it all up by considering the effects of the new moon on our personal lives and the collective sphere. All right. Welcome, Cam.
Thanks for having me, Margo. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. I'm going to go ahead and screen share with the chart for the new moon. And I think one of the things that is, let's see, hold on, screen share. There we go. One of the things that's really astounding is the sheer number of aspects going on with this new moon and all the planets involved.
Yeah, it's really incredible. I've been thinking about this new moon a lot because, we have so many astrology signatures in the upcoming year, but this new moon really starts the year off as a bang. And you can see just looking at that chart in the upper right-hand corner, we have Mars in Capricorn, Mercury. We have, which minor planet is that?
That's asteroid Astrea, the asteroid of legal matters.
Exactly conjunct the moon and the sun, which are always conjunct on a new moon. And then Venus just left Capricorn earlier today, actually. And so it's pretty much conjunct, just not a sign-based conjunction. And that whole setup is in a very close trine to Uranus over in Taurus in the upper left corner. Incredible. It's slightly over a degree. And then in the middle of that trine, we have Uranus making a sextile to Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, and the Capricorn pileup making a sextile to Saturn and Neptune as well, which are at the top of the chart. It's really an astounding setup. We call this a minor grand trine in astrology, and it's packed with a huge amount of energy. I mean, can you think of a time where we had so much energy on a new moon that was not an eclipse in recent memory?
No, I mean, this is an astronomical amount, no pun intended, of actual like acute exact aspects that are going on from the geocentric perspective. From the heliocentric perspective, we actually just passed through another one of these, what I kind of called planetary hot zones. When I did my my monthly AMA for my Discord, we talked about there were two hot zones in January. One of them was earlier in January from the heliocentric perspective. We had the same thing going on with a ton of exact aspects from that perspective. So it's interesting. It almost like handed off from the heliocentric aspects into the geocentric aspects.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting, not to get down too much of a rabbit hole, but the last time I found something this significant was the new moon in Capricorn in 1994.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't mention this to you, and I don't want to dive into this, but I was looking at this for my Patreons regarding the 1994 Northridge earthquake in LA. And that similarly had Mars, Venus, Mercury in Capricorn, but it also was when the Neptune-Uranus conjunction was happening in Capricorn.
Wow.
And so rather than a trine, it was a conjunction. And I just think of Capricorn as being such a stabilizing, important sign for world events that it's just a significant new moon that I can see for the past 30 years.
It is definitely. I think what's fascinating is you have some charts to share which give us a different view of looking at it. Do you want to pull up your charts real quick that put the actual new moon lines on the Earth so we can actually see where those lines are going through?
Yes. Can we see this all now? Can you see it on your screen?
I can see it on my screen. Yep.
This is the Astro-mapping tool, which a lot of people consider astrocartography, a trademarked name of the new moon. So no matter where in the world you are, these are the lines that represent where the planets are going to be transiting the ascendant, the IC, the descendant, and the midheaven at the exact time of the new moon. So the chart that I pulled for this, you can see with that bullseye symbol is for New York. But my point is, regardless of where you are, the new moon is going to be on the midheaven line in kind of Las Vegas, really, in the southwest over here. And we can see the part of fortune is going to be rising or on the ascendant right through the northeast, pretty close to New York.
Yeah,
And then the
that.
north node,
Oh,
go
yeah.
ahead,
No,
sorry.
you go ahead.
No,
Keep.
the last point
Yep.
was that the north node on the midheaven was really stood out to me as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, I mean, let's circle back to the part of fortune because I was going to talk about the part of fortune too. But I think it would be fascinating to just walk around the globe and see what's getting activated on this new moon. Because I remember that Greenland, it looks like it is also interestingly currently activated by the new moon, or maybe just off. Oh, look at that, Chiron. Chiron.
Chiron right there on the midheaven line. And this is so important when we think about public events, what's going to be the focus for the world right now. That midheaven line, right, is the most visible, the culminating angle. And one thing I always like to tell people about astrocartography, when you're doing it in your individual life, it's really about a relocated chart.
Mm,
These lines only show the angles, the ascendant, the descendant, the IC, the MC, but you can have a really important look at your relocated chart with all the other houses too. But when we're looking at current events or mundane astrology, which is what I specialize in, it's important to think about the MC angle and what that might state. So I can't believe that we have the Saturn Neptune conjunction, very close in aspect here.
yeah.
And this is the chart for the moment of the new moon. This is not something that's slowly moving across Greenland. This is the moment of the new moon. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something about Greenland in the news. We already are.
Yeah, it's definitely already front and center. And I think that it's going to continue to be because I took a look at the eclipse charts as well for the year. And, there's a line of thinking about eclipses that the eclipse shadow pathway foreshadows, if you will, events to come in what area. And Greenland is in the eclipse shadow in the August eclipse, actually, which is not the topic of our conversation today. But interesting that we're seeing
Yeah.
we're seeing Greenland get activated in multiple different events as we move through the year.
Yeah, I remember you posting that, and it's just stunning to think. And there probably will be a handoff between this new moon, the February Aquarius eclipse, and then its inverse, the Leo eclipse that you posted that shadow. So very interesting here. I also wanted to point out some of the lines going through Europe. We can actually see, in Western Europe, we have Uranus on the midheaven going through Western France, Eastern Spain, North Africa, West Africa. And then look at Saturn going straight through Finland and Eastern Europe. And what has been happening there recently?
That's
I think it's really interesting.
yeah. That's it's amazing to see. I mean, you just the infamous saying, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
Wow,
laughing.
look at
Obviously, it's
that.
a really,
Wow.
yeah, I sometimes I laugh because the astrology is so literal, but I
Yeah.
mean, this is heavy stuff. Saturn straight through Ukraine,
Yeah.
and then Neptune on the other side of Kiev.
Wow.
Um, Fascinating to look at that. These are not midheaven lines, so that's actually the descendant line, and so is that, which means that there could be something about partnerships and alliances that are going through there,
Hmm.
which I think is really literal. Look at Ukraine has some difficulty with its alliances right now, at least the alliance with the US.
Yeah. Definitely.
It keep it keeps showing all my notifications, but look, we can go over here and we can see the Chiron on the DC on the descendant going through Kazakhstan, Western Russia. And then this is really interesting to me because I am very fascinated in geology and environmental science. And there has been a huge amount of indicators of earthquakes lately, both clusters of earthquakes on the Pacific Rim, but there was also just a really strange, big on the, I'm blanking the word, the resonance that shows the sun spots and
Oh yeah.
the Schumann resonance
Yep, the Schumann resonance.
just had an unusual pattern today. And this new moon has Uranus. Again, it's on the descendant, but it's going straight through Southeast Asia, pretty close to India. And there's a geologist I follow on Twitter Stephen Burns, who said that this Schumann resonance indicates there could be a massive earthquake soon. And he felt like there was a similarity to the Schumann resonance in 2023 when we had that big Turkey earthquake. So I'm looking over
Mm,
here, I'm seeing Jupiter, I'm seeing Chiron, and this pileup of the Capricorn stellium over there as well.
that's fascinating. That and the Capricorn stellium pileup is also headed through the west coast of the United States, right?
Yeah, so it's interesting here, what's going through Afghanistan, Pakistan, all you can see here, that is the IC line of that Capricorn. So, could shake the foundations. And then if we come back over to the West Coast, this is the MC or the
Mm.
midheaven is going through the west over there.
Awesome. Wow, I love taking the different visual representations because it gives us almost a whole nother way of contextualizing and understanding that astrology isn't just an interpretation of something. It's actually quite literally where the planets are, and then you can map that and how it affects the different places on the earth. It would be interesting. So one of the things that really stood out to me when I was looking at the just a general longitudinal astrological map or chart was the part of fortune sitting exactly conjunct New York City. And I'm going to go ahead. Do you have the new moon chart there?
I have it right here, yeah, in New York
Awesome.
City.
Yeah. So the ascendant at the time of the new moon is, oh,
It's
interesting.
not showing the ascendant. Sorry, that's because,
There it
but
is.
there you go.
Perfect. Yeah, it's exactly conjunct. Look at that. By degree, the part of fortune. And so, if you look at just the aspects that the new moon is making, it doesn't show up like as a trine or a square, which are kind of the prime harmonics of 360 that we look at, but actually this is making an exact harmonic. It's the seventh harmonic, which is called a septile. And so 205 degrees is the degree of separation from the new moon to the part of fortune. And it's interesting because this is activating the polarity axis of the Capricorn Cancer axis. And the Capricorn Cancer axis is really the axis of power, if you think about it.
Hmm.
Capricorn ruling institutions, structure, hierarchy, and then, Cancer ruling the home and caretaking, but also defense and protecting yourself. And so what we've got is even though that polarity axis, which is the 180 degrees, is activated, but it's offset to that seventh harmonic because we've got the part of fortune in early Cancer, and then we've got the new moon at late Cancer. So I think that this is a pretty poignant moment. And, I use the part of fortune in financial astrology with a fair amount of precision. And when it's positively aspected, it tends to exert a bullish influence in financial markets, maybe not across all assets. It just kind of depends on the asset and how it's set up. But one thing that's interesting is to consider that it is hitting just the ascendant over New York City, which is the home of the New York Stock Exchange. So I have previously observed that is a bullish pattern. But what's interesting is that the new moon is sitting in the seventh house. And the seventh house in financial astrology is the house of sellers. So that makes me think that we may see some selling over the next lunar cycle. But overall, I don't think that it's catastrophic for the New York Stock Exchange. It seems like it should be favorable. And then, when I look at that part of fortune, I think about what sectors would be activated by part of fortune at 3 degrees Cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think of housing specifically, but also when I think of housing, actually one sector that I've got my eyes on right now is lumber. Lumber has had a really nice reversal off of its lows, and it's looking pretty bullish right now. And then, food is ruled by Cancer, and safety, domestic security issues. So defense companies, defense stocks is
Yeah,
another thing to
defense.
keep an eye on. Yeah, that's kind of my overall take on what really stands out to me from a financial astrology perspective. Well, you know what? There's actually one more thing, and actually, let me Let me grab the screen share and
Yeah. Did you quickly see how I switched to equal sign for you? I'll stop
uh-oh,
sharing. Go
this is,
ahead.
you know what? I lost my, here we go. There we go. All right. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. So this is something else that jumped out at me is this, I have these, they're called minor planets or asteroids. And
Yeah.
it's
Margo, do you
actually,
want to quickly share your screen? Because I
oh, I
stopped
am
sharing.
screen sharing. Do you not see it?
Nope. But go
Okay, let
ahead.
me
There
try
we go.
again. Let's try one more time just to make sure the technology is working. There
There
we
we go.
go.
Now I see it.
Good catch. um, okay, so a friend of mine has done astounding research using minor planets or asteroids. Her name is Sandy, and she has a Substack, which I will link to in the video description below. But what's amazing is that you can grab an asteroid that has a different, there's just 80,000 or more asteroids with different names. And the most astounding part about this is that they actually represent the thing in an astrological chart.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's really incredible. In the beginning, I was like, it's another one of those like, you can't make this up kind of situations,
Yeah. Yeah.
like there's an asteroid gold and an asteroid silver, and there's an asteroid robot. And amazingly, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole actually with Sandy on robotics. And at almost all of the key events in the developments of robotics history, she and I were actually, she's working on a blog on it right now. And we were talking about it could be a whole book. Actually, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
But Uranus is prominent in those charts, but specifically the asteroid robot is prominently placed in all of them. And so what
Incredible.
really jumped out at me is that asteroid robot is perfectly trine to this new moon. And,
Wow.
it's an Earth trine. And so it's very structural, right? So it makes me think that we're going to see some actual like structural progress and potentially unexpected progress with Uranus there, right? Maybe some unexpected developments or announcements in the realm of robotics over this next lunar cycle.
Got to, because I know we're going to be talking about that a lot in there. What cool insight with that minor planet.
Yeah. And then let's see. I think there was, well, I think
Can
that,
I
oh,
go ahead? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there was one thing I love to see about the part of fortune,
yep,
if I can jump in here.
please.
So it is exactly in conjunct Pluto. And I noticed that because there was a new moon in June that was almost exactly conjunct Jupiter. It was when Jupiter had just entered. And the new moon ended up being a little bit more uncomfortable than I was expecting. And it ended up being to the degree in conjunct Pluto as well. And though I think that new moon was good, it kind of prevented, I think, the worst in that mini war we had with Iran. It was, in my life and other clients, quite uncomfortable. And so there could be something here where that part of fortune's great for the New York Stock Exchange in New York, but is there something uncomfortable about, Pluto being in the seventh house of selling in conjunct, that selling could feel temporarily in conjunct. And
That's an awesome observation because
yeah,
Venus is also applying this conjunction to Pluto, which is exactly in conjunct to the part of fortune. And Venus represents longer term investors and longer term investors in the stock market, whereas Mercury would represent traders, right? But Venus is really more about those longer term positions. And so that's interesting. And it also represents currencies. And the other thing that really comes to mind about Venus is copper. Copper has been an asset that I have been interested in, the metals in general, but I've been long copper for a while. So it's interesting to think about how that might, play out there because it's also in the house of sellers in the seventh house.
yeah, that's an equal sign for the win situation because Pluto's still there in the seventh house. That's incredible.
Yeah, it is. Okay, awesome. This is great. I think you also had some observations of synthesizing some human design stuff. Do you have a chart you want to share about that, or do you just want to?
Yeah, I'm just going to talk about that, but I wanted to quickly just interject. One of the things I've learned so much from you is how you can observe this chart that we're looking at right now. Notice the impact on New York, where the US financial center is, Wall Street is, and also you can look at the impact on your personal chart. And so I'm really excited. I think that Venus is going to make it's going to apply to a conjunction with my natal Jupiter this week. And so I'm like, okay,
Nice.
there could be some selling. Am I allowed to finally do some selling, which my other aspects in my chart always want to do? And it's really neat how you can synthesize that. And I'm just plugging how much I've learned from you and how great your Discord is in that regard.
Oh,
It's
thank
a,
you. Yeah, that's
it's
awesome. I think looking at the new moon chart on your personal chart is really powerful. You know what else we could do real quick is take a look at it on the New York Stock Exchange chart because that's
right.
also
This is
right.
the last thing we wanted to talk about. And then I'll
Yeah.
talk about human design because I think this is really interesting here.
Yeah, this is interesting. So, I use the McWhirter version of the New York Stock Exchange chart, which is rectified to an ascendant at 14 degrees of Cancer. And I'm not going to unpack why I think that is, but it works exceptionally
It
well.
works. Yeah. Yeah.
um, but the inner wheel here is the New York Stock Exchange chart, and the outer wheel here is the new moon chart. And so, what's interesting is that not only is wait, I think this is. Do I have that new moon on there right?
Yep.
I do.
251
Yeah.
West Coast. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess what I noticed though is that the part of fortune's in the wrong spot. That's why I was hold on. 251.58 January.
That's because you had Wall Street in Maryland. Try change it
Ah,
to Wall
there
Street.
we go. Okay, let's do this. Thank
Different
you.
Wall Street.
Yep. Perfect. There we go. So fascinatingly, because the New York Stock Exchange has Cancer rising, this part of fortune is going to fall very close. Not, it's a pretty wide orb, about 11 degrees off, but it's falling in Cancer, and it's placing all of this activity that, if we just look at the transit chart, is happening over this in the seventh house over New York City. It's also happening in the seventh house over the New York Stock Exchange chart. And so that gives
Incredible.
extra power to really paying attention to that. The other thing that stood out to me on the topic of minor planets is in the New York Stock Exchange, this is the minor planet that I use to represent oil. And it's getting heavily activated by that whole Capricorn stellium. And so that is very interesting, and something I've been keeping my eye on the oil market. I do think we're going to see some pretty erratic moves over the next few weeks, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
just
I was gonna say, what do you think that means? Because I know we have this long-term analog of lower prices in oil. So do you think that conjunction indicates the erratic behavior?
yeah. I mean, think about it. We've got this whole stellium, and what I notice in financial astrology specifically is, and it's actually true in mundane as well, but when you get all these planets to get piled up together, it's almost like they're throwing elbows.
Right, right.
Like
Yeah.
who,
Yeah.
no, it's my turn. No, I'm in
Yeah.
charge. And so it's like that. Oftentimes in the financial markets, I see leads to erratic price action.
Mm,
And
brilliant.
the overall the analog that I'm tracking on crude oil right now is one. It's very erratic throughout the next couple months.
Incredible. Well, that actually brings me to what I wanted to connect with the mundane aspects, or just how to interpret this new moon, is the erratic nature of it is so unexpected in some way because we think of Capricorn as so stabilizing, so grounded, or at least structure oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have been talking about all week how it feels like we're in the middle of a Mercury retrograde, but we're not.
Yeah.
And I think that pile up, like you said, they're throwing elbows. I think the trine to Uranus is definitely part of why it feels a little bit chaotic. Putting Wall Street, Maryland in there is one of 20 things I've done wrong today alone,
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I was explaining this new moon to my Patreons, I was excited about the fact that the Capricorn energy is helping us dry out from a lot of the heavy water energy that we
Yeah.
had last fall. Especially, first we had Scorpio season, which meant everything was in a water sign for a month.
Yeah.
And then when the sun moved on to, and the inner planets to Sagittarius, they all squared the North Node, Saturn, Neptune in Pisces. And it was like we were presented with the rotting corpse of our world right now,
I love it.
And I love Pisces energy. I think it's incredible, optimistic, beautiful, all connective, but we're at the final degree of it.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I keep reminding people is we've had over 3 decades of outer planets in
Yeah.
Pisces. And
Yep.
if you go back to the first Saturn ingress in the 90s into Pisces, then we had Uranus and Neptune with, bouts of the nodes and Jupiter in between. I measured we only had like a few months without any significant Jupiter Pisces influence.
Yep.
And we're at the end of that. Neptune's at the final degree. It's not only the final degree of Pisces, but the entire zodiac. And Neptune is already like, I consider like final boss planet. You have no idea what's going on.
Yep.
It's disorienting. And Saturn's going to join in the 29th degree pretty soon. And I think that on one hand, we can look at this Capricorn new moon and we can say, okay, it's drying us out. It's the driest sign. And yet we're still in that context of ending so many cycles, not just 2.5 years of Pisces or Saturn in Pisces, but 14 years of Neptune in Pisces, plus really a 165-year cycle because when Neptune enters Aries, it's the start of a whole new orbit for it. So
Yep.
I've been trying to balance the dry, stamina, practical, pragmatic nature of Capricorn with the reality that we're still at the end of this. And I love how Chinese astrology provides confluence. We're at the final month of the year of the snake, the wood snake. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
Chinese astrologers talk about how the shedding that happens
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen until the very end. You went through all
Yep.
this growth. It's the wood snake. You're feeling the forest floor all year. And now we do the shedding. And this is officially the last lunar cycle until the Chinese or the Lunar New Year in February. Isn't that cool?
That is so cool. I love that you brought that up. That is so perfect. And I've actually thought about that in the context of the financial markets because I've gone back and looked at all of the years of the snake, and specifically the
Mm,
wood snake. And last year at the beginning of the year when I made, I think I was maybe talking on the Twitter forum, the X forum for the financial
yeah.
astrology forum there. And I pointed out that after looking at all of those transits, the Dow Jones, which was what I use for the financial, like for the US equity markets, because it has the most history, every year of the snake closes higher than it opened. Um,
Wow.
but
Incredible.
it also has usually at least one period of extreme volatility, and we've only really had one. We had that
Yeah.
big down move last spring. So I'm curious to see if we might get some selling into the end of the season, into the Chinese New Year. Um, not 100% confident about that, but it certainly would fit with the shedding of the
Yeah.
snake as we move into the next year, which is the year of the fire horse.
Yeah. I'm not the expert you are on financial systems, but it feels really right to me. Because even if we had a 3, 4, 5% drop, we'd
Yep.
be up for the year
Yes.
of the
Yep.
snake. And I mean, with Neptune changing signs, Saturn changing signs, Uranus stationing direct, we have a lot of significant astrology just on the geo level before the year of the fire horse begin. Giddy up. I'm so excited for that year.
I love it. I'm a horse. I'm an earth horse. So
Oh, that's
so
right. We talked about
it's an
that. Yeah.
auspicious year for me. I'm excited to
Very
welcome the
cool.
fire horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all. That's very cool. And the other thing that I think of too when you are talking about the shifting of the outer planets' energy away from water, it's something I actually talked about in my 2026 forecast book that I wrote, which was
Yeah.
really exciting because that's the first full forecast book that I've ever put out.
It's
So if
incredible.
if that's something that interests you, the viewers, I'll put a link in my video description below, and you can purchase it on Patreon. But we're going through what I was calling the great shift because we're moving from having all the outer planets in earth and water signs to having them in air and fire signs. And that's a huge energetic shift. And
Huge.
I mean, enormous, right? If we really just
Yeah.
sit and think about that, right? Because earth is grounded and water is flowing through the ground. Air and fire are combustible.
Hmm.
you know so I think that we're about to see, well, what I called the year 2026 is the year of ignition, activation, and expansion, because I
I love
think
those
that,
words.
yeah, that's just what it feels like. And the fire horse fits in there too, right?
I know.
um
It's incredible the confluence.
yeah, it really is. um
And we think about it, what I interpreted when you wrote those words is it's also igniting the 200-year I'm sorry, 200-year era of air, right?
Yes. Yep.
The
The great
Saturn
mutation.
Jupiter
Yep.
mutation. And you can look back. I'm doing some early research and I'm going to put out a piece on my Patreon and Substack about this, about when we look at the last era of Earth and the transition to the age of
Mm,
air. It went from a pretty capitalist society like we've had the past 200 years of selling things and markets and all of the earth-based, practical, tangible assets
hmm.
to one of much faster moving networks. And, I don't think capitalism is going away overnight, but you can see it was a radical shift for the world economy, even 800 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was something else that I unpacked there because there's a lot of outer planetary
You did.
aspects happening this year, and I did talk about that because also currency major currency events and transitions tend to correlate with some of the outer planetary aspects that we've got going on. Oh my gosh, we could talk and
I know
unpack
we
this for so long.
we'll do that on the next one, but
Yeah.
that's a great segue to the trine with Uranus. Uranus is finishing up its final few months in Taurus, the sign most associated with currencies,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so there could be something tied here with currencies and the changes that we've experienced to them. It'll be really interesting to watch the crypto market. But here's what I wanted to say about the general, unless you want to add any other financial, but we can land this
No, I
plane.
think, yeah, I think we're good. I think let's wrap it up with, how we personally want to navigate this.
Yeah, because I was really looking forward to the start of the year as being more practical, more Capricorn, and it just felt like drinking from a fire hydrant instead. And there was no time to set intentions, or do anything that felt like start of the year, at least in my life. I know a couple Capricorn risings who are just thriving, but if you feel like it's been such a busy start of the year, that makes sense with all the signs, with all the planets in the sign and jostling for attention and unleashing this huge amount of energy with the trine to Uranus and the sextile to Neptune and Saturn. But I think what we can do, and this is where I incorporated the human design piece I was telling you before we started recording. I incorporate human design a lot into my work. And if you don't know what this is, it's a multimodal system that combines a lot of different, um, occult studies, for lack of a better word, including Western astrology, including the Chinese I Ching. And it was something I was raised on. And so it's a natural way I like to incorporate into my astrological work. And this new moon is activating gate 60, which in human design is all about acceptance and sort of
Mm,
surrendering to what is. And I thought that was really an interesting point because that aligns so much with the Saturn and Neptune in the
mm-hmm.
final degrees of
Yeah.
Pisces. And there is nothing you can do right now but surrender. And my Virgo stellium tried so hard the first 2 weeks of this year to just fight that. And you can't, it's not possible right now, especially for Virgos who
Yeah.
are having all that energy opposing Virgo. But for all of us, it's a time of final surrendering, final shedding. And I think that's such a beautiful metaphor that we can think of this new moon as acceptance. And that
Mm,
doesn't mean you can't do anything. I mean, Capricorn energy wants to do, it's so practical. But
hmm.
one of the things I was talking about with the friends is what if you used that Capricorn energy to come up with some really practical rituals or practices you could do? How could you, incorporate back to the basics or essentialism? I mean, Capricorn really is the sign of essentialism. So I've reignited my gratitude journal, which
Mm.
anytime that I'm really thriving in life, I'm doing that. And it sounds like such a basic idea, but it really is an essential practice. How can you focus on the things you're grateful for and attract more of them? So if you're feeling the itch to initiate on this new moon like I am, but recognizing that we're also sort of trapped in by this final boss of Pisces energy, how can you have some rituals that are really, basic and essential and practical? That's my thought on this new moon.
I love that. That is really awesome. Yesterday I went and had a craniosacral bodywork treatment and
Ooh,
took myself
jealous.
shopping and was like, just really caring for myself and being having a lot of gratitude for my own life. And it's interesting that you bring that up because that was how I conducted yesterday. So self care, gratitude journal, and Yeah, staying focused on because there's
Acceptance.
acceptance and there's also a goal piece
Yeah.
to this new moon, because Capricorn, Saturn um, rewards following the rules and having goals,
Hmm.
and having healthy boundaries and all of those things. So I love the acceptance piece because that's truly how it feels as Saturn and Neptune walk through the last degrees of Pisces. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and I
beautiful.
think that sextile is just, already this Capricorn new moon is ruled by Saturn, but the close sextile to Saturn really should be highlighting for you what do you need to end? I mean, we're entering such, I'm so excited about this year, but I also think it's going to be a year unlike anything we've seen for a while. Not that it won't even get crazier in 2027, but what are you letting go? I mean, I keep thinking about that, and Saturn in Pisces is saying you can't hold on to it.
Yeah.
And that gate 60 is saying can't hold on, got to let go. And I'm speaking to myself right now, as a white knuckle grip on life Virgo. But I think it's a really great new moon for letting go if you want it to be.
I love it. That's perfect. That's beautiful. Thank you. It was such an honor to have you join me today. I love our
Thanks for
conversations.
having me.
Yeah,
That was so
definitely.
fun to chat with you about this.
It really was. Do you want to tell the viewers where they can find you?
Yeah, if you're interested in mundane astrology, I have a Patreon called the Weekly Stars you can look up. I do weekly forecasts. I do a news notes column talking about current events and the astrology, monthly astro planners, annual astro planners. It's a really fun space, and I have some great Patreons who make it fun. We have a great interaction there. So just look up the Weekly Stars or patreon.com, the Weekly Stars, and you can find me there.
Awesome. I'll put a link in the video description below too. Awesome.
Thanks, Margo. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
and if anybody's interested in joining my Discord, you can access my Discord through Patreon as well. Those links are going to be in the video description below. You can give both of us a follow on Twitter. Those links will also be in the video description below. And I also do one-on-one readings with a financial astrology focus, but I also do mundane astrology as well. So if that's anything that interests you, you can just head over to my website at margoamala.com. All right, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Margo. Bye.